Okay, so hello everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. Write something on the chat so that I can know if you can hear me. Okay. Thanks for bringing. Okay, so hello guys. My name is Sam, and I'll be taking you guys through. I'll be taking you today on Flutter and Firebase. Let me just do a brief introduction about as we go on. Yeah, let's do it. My name is Samuel Baraka, software developer. I'm part of the class of 2020, so we'll graduate around December. I love open source technologies, which Flutter is. I also love developer communities and developer group. I'm an environmentalist, and I'm also an achiever. So I just had to say that. This is my handle on all social media. Just find me anywhere using that. Okay. So enough. So let's get started. I think okay, nice. All you guys know what Flutter is. Just let's just this description from Wikipedia again. So Flutter is an open source user interface software declared by Google, which is used to develop applications for Android, iOS, Linux, basically all operating systems which run on a screen. Yeah, it was introduced around 2015 with the code name Sky. Now the name was changed to Flutter. Yes. So what is Firebase? Firebase is a platform for creating mobile and web applications. Firebase was acquired by Google sometime back in 2011. It was like a separate company which developed those products, and Google bought it. I think took it a step further. That's why it is now. So Firebase was created by a different company, but was acquired by Google. Yeah, and it's basically offering for app development. Basically, they use it for their services, and they have also open sourced it. They have also sourced it to other people for Firebase. It gives users like three main options, so that users can be able to build apps, to release and monitor the apps, and to also users in their apps. So basically, in this session, the next session will be the build part of the tools that we use to build the apps, to release and engage users maybe later on. So yeah, we're not going to handle the release and engage, but we're going to handle the release and engage, the build part of Firebase. Yeah. So you may ask yourself, why Firebase? So let's just look at let's pick a few examples, a few use case scenarios. Hello?
Hello, have you said something? Okay, let me just go on.
Okay, so let me just go on with the presentation. So let's just look at a few examples from the Firebase website. These are just like a few scenarios that were created by the Firebase team just to show you guys why you should use Firebase. This is the first one. You have an app, you want to add the chat functionality to it. You know, you can let users chat with each other without leaving your app. And we have using the Firebase build, for example, the real-time database, the cloud messaging feature, and the authentication. You can be able to create a platform where you use each other. For example, if you want to, for example, you're creating a social media application, you must include messaging. It's not a social media if you don't have messaging. So you can literally like use just the Firebase build features like real-time database, cloud messaging. Cloud messaging is for notification and sending the messages. The real-time database is to store the messages. And authentication to make sure that users can just send the messages to the right. You can sync your chat messages to millions of users in Firebase real-time database, and it is very stable. I've used it before. You can simply authenticate with Firebase authentication, then set up a chat room in the real-time database. Messages appear on all users' devices in real time. Like as the user is typing, as the new messages are appearing, they'll appear in the way you use a chat application. Like for example, let's say WhatsApp. As you chat, the messages appear in real time. Like immediately the user sends it, you receive it immediately. Provide connection. And use classic cloud messaging to send notifications so that users can get new messages if there's another app. If you want to create a great onboarding flow, if you want to introduce users to your app very quickly without small stress, you can give users a quick, intuitive sign-in process with Firebase Authentication, which is also part of the build. You can allow users to sign into your app with their Facebook, Twitter, Google, or GitHub account with less than. You can even authenticate the users in seconds. It's not that difficult. You can track each step in onboarding flow to improve experience. Firebase has this feature called Firebase Analytics, which can be used to log events and be able to track users, the steps users are taking throughout the app, and basically read all the users, give you the information which you can use to create funnels to see where users are dropping off, and use remote configuration to Firebase remote configuration to make changes to your app to see how it affects conversation. For example, if your app has ads, like you've integrated ads to your application, you can optimize the ads based on the user behavior using like Firebase Analytics remote configuration. You can literally know what the user's interests are. You just have to write your code well and just know what the user's interests are, and you can be able to drive more targeted ads to your users. So in today's session, we'll be handling this. In this session, we'll be handling the build part of Firebase, mainly these four. So today's session will handle the setting up the Firebase and a Flutter app and the Firebase. And in the next section, we'll handle the more ones, the database and storage. So setting up Firebase in a Flutter app. So the way you set up Firebase in a Flutter app isn't that different from the way you set up Firebase in a normal Android app. It's just the same way because the underlying code is just the native code, and so due to this, it's not that difficult to set up Firebase on the Flutter app. So let's dive straight into a practical, so that you can be able to create like a Firebase. I'm able to demonstrate to you guys how we can implement, how we can how we can connect a Firebase to a Flutter app. So let me just stop my presentation and let's get started. Let me just stop the presentation. Okay, so you can use onto your IDE of choice. In my case, I normally use Visual Studio Code, but in this tutorial, I'll be using Android Studio. So the IDE is loading, but yeah. Let me just bring it to this. Okay, so once you have set up that completely in your app, in your desk, in your computer, for example, in your Android Studio or in your Visual Studio Code, just go to, if you're using Android Studio, I'll be using Android Studio because it's more direct. Just click on create a new Flutter project. It will bring you to this window. Just select where your Flutter path is. In my case, it's in, I've placed it in my disk C. Next. So it's creating a new Flutter project. So let's just wait and see. So as the project is creating, we can just head on to our browser and we just head on to our browser and to the Firebase console, where you can be able to create a new Firebase project. Just click on create new Firebase project. Then give your Firebase project a name. Let me call it Flutter Friday. Let me call it Flutter Friday. Okay, also limits you to the number of projects you can create. So just know how to manage your your Firebase. So you can be able to enable Google Analytics for Firebase project, which is a free and unlimited analytics solution that enables targeting, reporting, and more in Firebase Analytics. Click on the default. Sorry guys, it's kind of shaky. It's kind of shaky, but we behave this time. So just let me know if you can. About that. So I was in the process of showing you guys how we can connect Flutter up to a Firebase project. So as before I broke off like this application. Okay. Just close this and create the project. So let's just create a new Flutter application. Let's give it a name. Let's give it an organization. Let's com.bsc. Flutter. That's the description. On the language that we'll be using, just choose Kotlin and for iOS and Android. For the platforms, I'll exclude Windows because Flutter only runs on Firebase on the web, and so I'll exclude the desktop versions of it. And yeah, project. Let's go back to our Firebase console. Just console.firebase.com. Actually, logged in with your Google account. And let's create a project. Let's give it a name. Flutter Friday. And analytics basically enables targeting, reporting, and more. Analytics, cloud messaging, etc. So let's for that, just use the default account for Firebase. So let's go back to our, as you can see, to our code. As you can see, how normally have the presentation mode. Let me see. So go back. Our project is ready. So once you created the project successfully, this screen, Windows means you can't set up Firebase on iOS. So I'll just do setting up on. So register the app. You have to put the app package name here. So package name can be found in folder. Just go to the app source name. Go to the Android manifest, and you'll find the package name here. So as you can see, it is com.dsc.flutterfriday.firebase. Basically, how Google names the package names, it kind of reverses the organization, then puts the Flutter in the app name after reversing the domain. So let's just press it there. Let's give it a nickname. Friday. We can input the debug signing certificate, but signing certificate is basically important when you're using things like Google signing and stuff. So let's just do it. How you can do it on Windows. Let me just take you guys through how you can do that on Windows. Just open your command window. You just have to run this command, and to be able to give the commands. One certificate fingerprints so that you can be able to use. It's important if you want to use other signing providers like Google sign-in, phone number authentication and stuff. Yeah. Register there. So as it is registering, we're given a guide here so that I can be able to download the Google services.json file. So let's just download it. And we are told the app folder in the Android folder in the Flutter app. So as it is downloading, let me okay, it is downloaded. So let's just go to the folder where it is downloaded. So let me just copy it, or you can just drag and drop it to the. So make sure you drag it into this folder, the app folder of the Android the app folder, which is found in the Android folder inside the Flutter project. So there it is. As you can see, what this file contains just a couple of parameters or information so that the app can be able to use to communicate with the Firebase. So this is basically where the app connects with Firebase. It will get the information where once you've copied that, go back to the instructions. We have like add to your Flutter app. Yes, we call clean. In the project level Gradle, you just have to include these Google services. So let's just go to in the project level build. We have build.gradle. We have the project level. Level is this one. So you have to paste here the class Google service. Build.gradle. In the app level build.gradle, you have to include, you have to apply the Google services plugin. So let's just go back to the app and app level build.gradle. Let's apply that. Basically, since we're using analytics, yeah, we'll also have to copy this. These are not required, so let's just go to the next step. Continue with the console. Okay, so we have successfully connected our app to Firebase, and so from here on, I think you can be able to run it and be able to run it. Yeah, so let me just start my emulator. It is starting. Let's get back to the slides. What I showed you guys is basically how to go through basically what I showed you guys is how basically to go through setting up Firebase to your Flutter project. As you have seen, is not a difficult process to do. Okay, we have a question from VK. Which command did I use on the CMD? I used the command, let me just send the link. Just use this link and you'll be able to read all about authenticating clients, basically using the SHA-1 certificate. Yeah. Yeah, so let's go back to the slides. After when we run the app, after the app has run, let me see. Let me first confirm if okay, the emulator is already started. And we have the do the app. Just the app and see. Okay, so as the app is building, let's just go back and learn about the Firebase authentication. So Firebase authentication aims to make building secure authentication systems easily while improving the sign-in and onboarding experience for end users. Provides an end-to-end identity solution supporting email and password accounts, phone authentication, Google, Twitter, Facebook, GitHub logging, and more. Basically,
has like many sign-in providers,
as you're able to see here. So to be able to access the authentication part of Firebase, just go to your Firebase console, and on the sidebar on the left, you can just click on authentication, and it will give you tutorial on that. But let's just skip it for today. But go to your Firebase console, you can be able to check it. As you can see, you'll be able to see like providers. Call and password, we have phone authentication. Phone authentication is the same way WhatsApp and other application use authenticating users into the. Basically, you input your number, it sends your code, it detects the code automatically, or you can be able to feed the code, and yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, so we have email and password. Phone, Google sign in. You can be able to use Google. You can sign in, play games with the Game Center from Apple, with Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Yahoo, Microsoft, Apple.
anonymously.
So, for example, if the user kind of values a lot of privacy, doesn't really want to share information about themselves, you can be able to allow them to. You can give them the option to register or to authenticate into the app anonymously, but they'll have a user account which is also anonymous. All this is safe, will be safe. Safe is, yeah. So yeah, as we are waiting for the app to build, I looked at the. I've been looking at the schedules for the Flutter Friday series, and yeah, I've been able to see you guys have been able to go through a lot of things before. So I know you guys understand how packages work and how basically Flutter. That's my assumption. So the app has run, and obviously your first Flutter app has this counter app which is created. So let's just delete everything and be able to. I don't know. Presentation mode. After setting up your Flutter application, then you can go to pub.dev. Dev is where most, not most, all packages, all Dart packages, Dart Flutter packages are stored. So let's just search for Firebase Authentication. Okay, nice. As you've seen, we have this, which is the official package from the Google team. As you can see, it's made by firebase.google.com. They have several packages which they have developed: Firebase Core, Auth, Cloud Firestore, Cloud Firebase Messaging, etc. Basically, they have all their features developed as packages for Flutter. So let's just create a new material app, a new application. So let's just discuss. Basically, we are discarding the previous app, the count application. Okay. Let's go to the home page. Which turns a scaffold. Scaffold is basically a white area, a screen area, with body center, with the child, a text, Flutter. Okay, so we have an error here. It's again. So let's go and yeah. So use Firebase authentication. You'll have to include the Firebase core and the Firebase authentication plugin. So the Firebase core basically enables you to be able to use the Firebase core API on the Flutter app. Stop it first before it finishes to build, and let's place here the path. Just paste it in the outlook. Place the Firebase core, and let's go back to include the Firebase authentication to be able to authenticate users using Firebase in the app. Okay, nice. So after placing the packages there, just run Flutter upgrade. Flutter upgrade in Flutter Friday Firebase. So the get. So let's the app in the device. So basically, Firebase authentication, and it gives you like that simple way to integrate authentication to your app. For example, if you don't have like your own server, you don't want to interact with any other third-party server, yeah, you can use Firebase Auth. It's secure to implement, and yeah. So as it is building, let's just go through some of the documentation for Firebase authentication. Let's the example. We have this simple app that was created, and yeah, even as you are creating the Flutter app, also, guys, if you have already integrated, let me say, the Firebase to your app, you'll have to include this initialize app for anything else. You have to include this. So let's just copy it and paste it here. So we have the await keyword. That means we'll make this method asynchronous. So guys, have on asynchronous programming that. So let's just publish that. Yeah. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, I'll take silence as no question. So as that is building, have some with the compiler. Just click on it.
and also all operating systems. But for you to be able to develop
apps for iOS, you have to need a MacBook or an Apple computer. So basically,
yeah, you just have to be.
So the app is built and is running successfully, as you can see here. You can be able to see the screen, the center text, Flutter Friday. So maybe you can just zoom so that you see. Yeah, that is basically the screen that you have designed. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a simple login page and be able to authenticate users. Yeah. So
let's just scrap this one page off. Let's get a simple login page. Just like this widget.
Login page. So for this material app, let's give it a home as its home to be the login page. Which basically returns a container. Container is basically something blank. That's why you see the screen as black. So let's return a scaffold. Whose style is whose body is a color. The children, for the children, let it be like let's create a logo. For example, the easiest logo we can use is the Flutter logo. So let's just use it. Logo. Size, let's give it 100. So set the properties for the column. Let's just give it a cross-axis alignment to be center. The main axis alignment to be center.
After the logo, let's give it some space.
Size box. We give spaces by using size boxes. And let's get a text field or text field. First text field will contain the email. The second text field will contain the password. As you can see, we have this text field here, and the second text field. So let's just also add a size box between them to give them a little bit of spacing. Okay, that's nice. So let's give the text field some decoration to be able to tell users just to decorate it. Input decoration. Decoration. Let's give it a hint text. The hint text to be email. That you're able to give the users information about. You're able to tell the users that's where the email is. The second text field is
Okay, so I'm still audible. Am I still audible? Okay, nice.
okay. So we have the email and the password. So let's after the size the password text field. Height Let's just press it after the text. Okay. So button.
Try using the text.
Again. So let's give the button a color. Let's give it blue. Blue is my favorite color. Okay. So yeah, on tapping this button to be able to log in. When pressed, we'll have to get access to the values of the email. The value of this field is password. Okay, before you can just add some padding to make the let's add some padding. Let's give it a print. Nice. So for us to be able to access the email and the password, we'll have to use the controllers. In this case, let's just create two controllers. Using the power of copy paste, just do that. Yes. So in the text field, give it the controller value to be email controller, and the second is to be controller to be the password controller. Okay. So pressing the button, we have to run this login. The method will be called login. So this, so let's just get the method done. Yeah, so let's get started. This method asynchronous. Yeah. This method will also require two parameters. Let's give it a string of type a variable named email type string and a variable named string. Let's just make the parameters required. So here we'll find an array here. So we'll just put the email to be text of the email controller, and the password will be controller f6. To implement login, you will have instantiated the Firebase Authentication. So let's just create an instance of the Firebase auth instance. auth.in. So login. Just write a comment there. Login will have to include. We'll have to await that auth instance dot you can create a user with email and password, and you can also log in with email and password. So what we're going to do right now, we're just going to log in, sign in with email and password. Sign in with email and password. The email is this value will be picked, and for the password, this value will be picked. So basically that's it. So on completing, let's just print. Let's just equate the login method to whatever it will be returned to as after the login to be the variable x. After login, let's just print x. Let's just print user's email after logging in. Okay, that's it. Let's make sure that we catch the errors for the app after trying to log in. Basically, try catch is basically a way of handling exceptions and stuff. So an error will just let's just print the error, which is that invalid. Let's be printed as a string. To log in, let's use we'll find this error that no Firebase app default has been created. So the app, because I had created it after the app. So let's try again. As you can see, I've tried to log in and I've been given this error. The game is disabled for this Firebase project. Enable it in the Firebase console under the sign method tab in the auth section. So for us to be able to have to go back to the Firebase console. Go to sign in methods. As you can see, the option is disabled. So just go here and then save. Saving it, try again. Let's click corresponding to this identifier. The user may have been hidden. You don't have a user in the app. Just go back to the Firebase console. Go back to the users tab. But let's add a user. Let's give the user an email. Let it be my email, and the password to be Sam12. Right? So we've been given a user ID. It is. So let's just try again. To be using. we have been given the reading notifying ID token for listeners about HM with my user ID. And after logging in, it has printed my email, and that's what we wrote in this after logging in successfully, it will be able to print the email. That's what has just happened, basically meaning that authenticated the app. If the user is not done, for example, if the user is not, let me just copy everything here, and if the user is not there, you can be able to register the app from the app. Register the app. So let's just use this. So instead of calling it signing with email and password, we can just say create user. Just the same way, we can just change the names. So let's create another button called register. If the user is not registered in with the app, so you can just register and be able to log in. So let's try to register with the same email and see what will happen. So I'm clicking register. And then that the email address is already in use by another account. So basically, you won't have to check for if the user exists in the app or not. Firebase will literally check that for you, and it will also do the validation for you, everything. So as you can see, the email address is already in use by another account. But if you want to change the need to register another user, maybe you can use like let me use iv@gmail.com. So trying to log in with iv@gmail.com, we're given the message there's no user corresponding to this identifier. The user may have been deleted. So in our case, you can just register her. So iv is registered. So logging in the user, the login successful. So basically, that's how you handle Firebase authentication and basically all authentication. As you can see from the Firebase console, we have different methods. You can be able to sign by phone, sign by Google, sign by Play Games. But to handle this today, all it will handle is the email and password. Yeah. So let's go back to our slides. Any questions so far? Okay, if you have a question, you can just type it in the chat, and we shall see. We shall see. So this brings us to the end of this first session, Firebase, which basically has been an introduction to Firebase and introduction to Firebase authentication. So let's put this back up next session. In the next session, we'll be handling the most, I can say the most things Firebase, the most interesting features on Firebase, which will be Firebase database and Firebase storage. So basically, Firebase database will be using which is also a database by Firebase, which will be able to store data. We have cloud storage. Cloud storage is where we'll be able to store your files, images, PDFs, everything. So basically, what we'll be doing in that is we'll be creating in the next session, which will be interesting app. We'll be creating something like Instagram. The way like Instagram is able to post images, so the images will be able to be posted in the Firebase storage, and the images will be able to be stored in Firebase storage, and the information about the user will be authenticated by Firebase authentication, and the user information will be stored in Firebase storage, database, Firestore, and every information, for example, the capture, everything will be stored in the Firebase Firestore also. So that should be a very interesting session. So I'd urge all of you who attended this session to not to miss it, and it will be fun. So thanks. Yeah, I don't see any question in the chat. So yeah, thanks. Back to you, Ivy.